All right, so thanks for attending the session today. We're going to cover about 20 slides. And the way I'd want to handle it is that if you have any questions or input as we go, please feel free to pipe up and we can have a talk. Use the chat and we can have a look at that in the over the next little while. Because there's only 4 of us, we can have a deep dive conversation on some specifics, and we'll move on to the next slide. So I just wanted to do a quick poll about what you expect to get out of the session and go over some types of the Rotary fundraisers that we do and identify some elements that are needed for success, and then some next steps about where we're going with this. So please feel free to make notes. I can provide you with a copy of the slides, and we can keep on interacting. So Dan, how about you give us an introduction about who you are, the name of your club, types of fundraisers that your club does, and what you hope to get out of today.
I'm a relatively new member to the Buffalo Sunrise Rotary, former member of Westfield Mayville. As far as what I'm looking to get out of this, I don't think my club has done very well in the fundraising effort. I think they find it easier to write checks. And I think from my interaction with other clubs, fundraising not only provides the club money, but it creates some stickiness among the members if they work together to do these fundraisers rather than just writing checks.
Okay. So what do you hope to get out of today's session?
Well, you're going to teach me how to make these people a group.
Okay.
My wife belonged to an organization once that was called Twigs. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Twigs. I thought it was the most ridiculous thing in the world, but I get the feeling that's the Rotary Club I belong to. Twigs stands for Together with Individual Goals.
Okay. Janet, how about you?
Sure. My name is Janet.
Your sound is not coming.
Okay, should we try this? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay, so my name is Janet Howard. I'm with the club of St. Catharines Lakeshore. I've been a member of the club since 1992. The type of fundraisers our club does has varied from year to year. We used to have a hugely successful lobster fest. We stopped it about 7 years ago because we couldn't get lobster for the price we needed to in order to be as successful as we were hoping to be. Now our biggest fundraisers are trivia nights. We do 2 a year. They do well. We also have some smaller fundraisers. We do a Cobb's Bread card that we sell that actually was shockingly successful. And then we do some small stuff. We did a golf tournament pre-COVID. We haven't started one since COVID. So I think that's changed things. Absolutely agree with Dan's comment that fundraisers, I'm not sure I would have used the word stickiness, but certainly do commit people to the club when they are working with other members. And I think that's a big part of doing fundraisers. What I hope to get out of the session is just some ideas, and I'm really looking forward to your comments on what makes a fundraiser work, what makes it successful.
Now, did you say something about a card that you sell?
Mm-hmm. So Cobb's Bread, which is a bakery in town, they will sell this card to members of the community, like 2 charities, and they only pick a couple of charities. And what it allows is you buy the card. Last year was $20. This year was $25. And it allows a member to go into Cobb's Bread once a month and get a free loaf of bread of any type of bread that they have. And they have a lot of different types of seasonal breads as well, like Easter bread and stuff. Anyway, and what happens with that $25 is half of it goes to Cobb's and half of it we get as fundraising money. And we made $4,000, I think, and it's easy because people want to buy it because they see themselves getting a free loaf of bread every month.
Okay. Cool.
It was very cool.
Thank you. Tanya, how about you?
Actually, I've been a member of the Niagara Falls Rotary Sunrise Club for 12 years, but prior to that, I had been on the actual Ribfest committee before becoming a member. So I had volunteered with our local Ribfest here in Niagara Falls, which our club takes on primarily. And this year will be our 19th year. We've had some little bit of difficulties because we've had to relocate the one in Niagara Falls a number of times. So that's been a challenge. And then our other big fundraiser for the year, we join in with the Mega Rotary Auction that a lot of the Niagara clubs do. I believe there's 6 clubs that join together and work on the Rotary Auction. And then we do a few little fundraisers. We've done, the tulip sales and little, during COVID, we tried a virtual bingo and just a few little other fundraisers here and there too. We did do a golf tournament, I believe a few years ago, actually before I became a member. I think it was just prior to me becoming a member 12 years ago, and it was an international golf tournament, which was very, very, very successful for our club. I believe our club raised quite a bit of money from that. And yeah, and I believe we're actually planning one for the district or something next October, so October 2024.
Okay. Bit about me. I'm your district governor nominee, and I'm from the Rotary Club of Welland, so I'm in the Niagara area. We also participate in the Rotary TV auction. We are planning a golf tournament. We did a golf tournament years ago, so one of our members just jumped up and said, I'm going to lead the charge and develop this. And we do a couple of fundraisers where we do a bocce tournament and a curling tournament. So we invite teams from the other area Rotary clubs to come and join in. So one's a pasta dinner and one's a pizza dinner. So we have the pasta dinner, then we do the bocce, and then for the curling, we do the curling, and then we have pizza afterwards. We're also organizing a purse bingo for the 24th of May. So we've got 200 tickets sold for that. And I can get into some of the details on the purse bingo. All right. So the way I've structured the talk today, I've divided it up into what I kind of classify as major fundraisers, where you earn significant operating revenue for your club, and then the fundraisers, which are revenue generating or revenue neutral, and both have tangible and intangible outcomes. There's the gaming fundraisers as well. So it kind of cuts across the major and the smaller kinds of fundraisers where you may or may not need a license. And so I'm going to point out some of the differences in both. So major fundraisers. They can be key sources of revenue for clubs. They can be games of chance where part of the fundraiser is a bingo, like the purse bingo I noted. There are ticket-related draws, and so those games of chance would require a license. For sure, they need a license in Ontario, and in New York State, I think it's above $5,000 revenue. You need a license. For auctions, And I have to say, there's some things that I may say that I might need some more clarification on. So I want to do a bit more research into talking with some American colleagues on the ticket-related draws. There's also various auctions that some Rotary clubs do, where you can. I know the Rotary Club of Halliburton, for example, they raffle off a car every year, so that's their major fundraiser. The Brantford clubs, they do a trip of the month draw, which I think is really kind of cool. So it raises quite a bit of money. I mean, it's a limited amount of tickets. One of the clubs in kind of the southern tier, they do an appliance raffle. And you can do a whole number of other kinds of raffles too. So, you've heard of the meat raffle. The Americans seem to do better at meat raffles than the Canadians do. So I'm kind of wondering why that is. And of course, the TV auction, where you auction off a whole bunch of items. So that's only within a handful of clubs. And it's kind of curious. We don't really have a lot of our American friends in our district who bid on those items, which they could, because it's now online. And then there's the major fundraisers that are ticketed events. So sometimes they're on one day or over a weekend. So they can be a golf tournament, could be a food festival, meat raffle. Again, it'd be a ticketed event. And then it can be sometimes combined with art and music. And I know some of the food festivals that Rotary runs around our district and neighboring districts, they really have invested heavily in developing kind of a local music flavor. So the venue is popped up around a stage, so taking advantage of some of the assets in the community. So we also do fundraising through our foundation. That's not kind of the talk today. We do have a great foundation team, and there's a really good resource page there that is at myrotary.org. And there are challenges to each type of these major fundraisers, and some of them really have to, the nuts and bolts really have to deal with getting enough volunteers to staff these, and some of the logistics are it's an extremely large challenge. And I'm going to get into a bit more of the details in a moment. Another example that I wanted to mention, the Rotary Club of Niagara-on-the-Lake, they do a house tour, which I think is really a splendid initiative, and they raise a significant amount of money. There's kind of a teaser house that they get everybody amped up about this, and then they sell blocks of tickets, and people are clamoring to get their house on the tour. And I'm fascinated about how we might be able to franchise things like the house tour, or I know, Dan, over in Buffalo, there's some amazing architecture, and there's probably other groups in the community that are doing house tours. But if we can get one model club to develop their business plan and outline, we can post it on our website, and then other clubs can go grab that model and then be mentored by the original club to help develop that. And it's not really competitive if we make sure that some of these events don't kind of draw the same audience, but it could be a collaborative thing too, where you could have a house tour on one side of the border, and then a month later you could have a house tour on the other side of the border. So it's something that I think is worthy of exploration.
On that note, Dave, there's I believe in Hamilton, and I think it's run by the city of Hamilton. It's a thing called Doors Open, and it's not necessarily houses. It's just like old architectural buildings, so they could be public business, private businesses or whatever. And I believe it's run by the city of Hamilton. So that might be even something to explore, that it's not necessarily houses, but architectural buildings within the community. So
that's right. There's some municipal buildings that the communities, people in the community are wondering, geez, I wonder what it looks like inside there. And 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 sometimes are part of Doors Open. And Doors Open's a kind of a wider movement, and at times the museums in your community are involved in that. So a museum could be a partner in helping to expand that, especially because we want to make sure that the community knows that not only are they buying a ticket to enjoy a benefit, but that the money that's raised, or a good portion of the money that's raised, is actually going through to a good cause. And again, that's one of the main points in terms of developing a fundraiser or scaling up a fundraiser, is to really hammer that point home, is that you're not just giving to Rotary, it's who then Rotary in turn gives to. So that's got to be part of crafting your narrative. So here's a list of more examples. So it's a golf tournament, but there's all kinds of different golf tournaments. There's the Frisbee golf, and there's fun golf, etc. So you can spruce that up. And then trivia nights, as mentioned, it could be music trivia as well. There's a whole range of products that could be developed and sold. It can be, sure, an auction, but I've often thought, and I'll make the point later, that there's one winner and all these other bidders, and so how do you get those products at a certain value to those other people that would have wanted one? So it's kind of like buying in bulk and raising money that way. There's a whole number of thons, so running, walking, swimming, bike, bowling, so those are models that are out there. Different kinds of drives. I mean, right now you can earn a lot of money from scrap metal, so it sells for a lot, and be surprising how quickly that scales up. Some organizations do a duck race, and I know that a couple of Rotary clubs and a Kiwanis club, etc., they've got these ducks. They're available for rent, and so that can be a major fundraiser. There are tournaments like lawn bowling. I know there's a club in California that does an all weekend long bowling tournament. There's 100 teams or so. They raise over $100,000 in a weekend because the teams are sponsored. There's an entry fee. There's all kinds of other revenue opportunities. So people know that when you show up to these things, don't just buy a ticket and show up. Show up with some cash to spend in your wallet, because there's additional games and prizes. And then tournaments like a game night. I thought it would be kind of neat to, every year there's new games that come out, and people can get together and run a game night, and just, $20 a team or $20 a person. And you can organize that in a school gym, and it's kind of fun. You can organize that with your youth-related clubs. In Welland, we did a coupon book in partnership with another local organization. I'm kind of hoping that we're going to, treat this as a pilot for the first year, and that we can continue on with this. That there's some kind of value in working with the local retailers and others that, with regards to earning money from selling a coupon book. There's a jail and bail. I know that was popular at one time, and then I haven't heard of any jail and bails since then, but that's all often kind of fun. And then, of course, there's dinners and lunches, especially around a club's anniversary or a significant event. So we can talk a bit more about that later. So here are some habits that I thought it would be worthy to mention in terms of giving a taste towards some fundraising. So, and it should be a known part of your club. This is who we are. This is what we do. So that, on occasion, that you're going to pass the hat, and you're going to put some money in a hat, and that will go towards maybe a cause. Maybe this could be on a monthly basis, and some clubs actually do this every time. Is being able to go around and just say, look, just give me some change in your pocket, and that adds up. And then, of course, the Sergeant at Arms, finds that are fun. And I was at the Rotary Club of Coburg meeting. I've gone there a couple of times because my parents live in the area, and they raise a lot of money through the Sergeant at Arms process and Happy Dollars. And then clubs have every Rotarian every year asking for straight donations, just saying, look, we need to, this is an issue, it could be a crisis or an emergency. Open up your wallets and let's pool some resources together. And then we've got to talk a bit about, okay, well, it's not just about opening up your wallet and giving money, but can you provide that as a donation and get a tax receipt for it? Because that's what some people look for. So that's part of the culture of your club in being able to donate, and things would add up over time. So one of the things I do is I sell stuff on Facebook Marketplace or Kijiji, or I guess in the US it's Craigslist, etc. And that just take what you have from a garage sale or what you're selling online, and just make a donation. So, and just that pools up. So I did a garage sale during the pandemic. There was a window during the pandemic where it could be done, and so I just put stuff out on the front of the house. I had signs up. I did a bit of social media advertising. I said, just come by and take what you want. So if you need something, you can take it, but anything that you leave in the can, I will donate to local charity. And I raised $250 for that. And people came by and they took stuff, and I was just like, well, they didn't leave any money. But some people came by and it was like for something, but I thought it wasn't for me anymore. They left some dollars, and it was like, okay, so it kind of worked out in the end. So that was surprisingly to me a good thing. So I think that's something that we could, people could try. And then sponsoring others, when you want to learn about this, find out what's in your neighborhood and other organizations. The Optimist Club here in Welland, they have a silent auction every spring, and so you go to enough of these silent auctions, and you start to pick up a little bit more about how it's done, and you hang around and chat about things. You find out who they're getting donations from, etc. Because you find out that they've got a really strong relationship with the local grocery store owner. And it's like, well, okay, that's your connection. We won't hit them up for a donation. So it builds relationships across the service club organizations. But I think it's really high time that we have serious cross the aisle conversations with the other service clubs, because I feel that from a demographic perspective, we're being challenged with the resources that we have and the needs that we want to raise money for. And then as you build your momentum towards doing fundraising or branching off into a different direction, be able to look at the skills and the needs so that you can invite others to your fundraising circle. Being able to make those connections, being able to say, look, I think this person would be a really good asset to the group, and just try to ease, especially new members in there, to working on something that could be very positive. And then, as I noted with the house tour, so if you're running some concerts or something like that, you can have a teaser at the start just to say, hey, this is an activity that is happening. And so it's kind of like a progressive chase the ace kind of idea, where you start with one event and you move to the next one and the next one. So it builds momentum. And Dan, I don't know if you're following, but I'm sure that Janet and Tanya know about this, that in Hagersville, which is just a bit south and west of the Hamilton area, just outside our district. The local group there, it was the Lions Club. They did a progressive 50-50 draw, and they were doing a chase the ace rather, and I believe the pot was over $1 million, and it was garnering attention from all over Ontario, and a couple of people there were saying, this is really difficult because we've got people driving from all over the place to have a chance to win, and logistically, if it wasn't for the local Legion and as a partner, they would not have, things would have just crumbled. But this thing just scaled up. I think they had like 9 cards left when the ace was finally drawn, and they raised a significant amount of money for local groups. So I'm kind of wondering how we might be able to do that in other parts of our district. So in our district.
We
Well,
did
what-
one, we did one with the Niagara Falls Club a couple of years ago. It never got up to that much, but there were a couple checks that I think we did it 3 times, and a couple checks that were just like around the $2,000 mark. And then I don't know if you guys remember too, there was one that was out east in Canada in a small town, and the pot got to, you know, like 400,000, but the town was so small and all these people were coming into the town that it was actually causing traffic jams from this hall, because they actually had to expand outside into the parking lot, and they ended up making it into a big festival thing. So weekly people would come to this big thing to await the drawing of the name to pick the card, and they had they ended up building this whole festival selling beer and food and everything like that, and it kind of brought the town and the whole area together.
Yeah, I mean, it's just things just kind of scale up pretty quickly there, and you got to kind of roll with this, you know, and turning that into a festival that can really spring into a different set of fundraising opportunities. So, Dan, you were going to say something?
I was curious, over what period of time does this happen? I've never heard of this.
So the progressive draw in Hagersville, I believe, was like it started last fall, and they did a draw every week, and so they pulled the ace every week, and so but you know, it's just exponential growth. It just kind of exploded over the last month and a bit, and people were walking away with, you know, pretty sizable checks.
Dan, do you know the premise of what a chase the ace draw is? It's basically you have a deck of 52 cards over a week. Usually it's weekly. They do the draw. You sell as many tickets as you can, and then they draw a name, and that person draws, or you draw every week. They draw a name, and that person gets to choose from the deck of cards, and they have to find the ace. Usually you put the deck of cards up on a board, and with the backs facing outward so you can't see the card. And then every time that there isn't a winner, all the ticket sale money goes back into the pot. Again, 50% of it, or I forget what the cut is, how it goes. 50%. Oh, you get, so that's what it is. 50% goes into the pot, and then the other 50% is split in half. So every week when that name is drawn, they get 25% of the weekly winning, I think. And then 25% goes to the club, and 50% goes to the big jackpot at the end. So I think you do get a weekly draw. You get, even if your name's called and you don't find the ace, you do get a certain amount of money.
Right.
I think it's 25% of the weekly draw.
So the way the province of Ontario's organized it, half the revenue, the total revenue, goes towards charity, and then a regular draw, the 50, like a 50-50, half would go, the other half would go towards the winner from the ticket sales.
In the chase the ace, they split that second half of that 50%.
That's right. So
one goes to the winner, and one goes to
and you can work it out so that it's, you know, 20% and 30% or whatever. So so once the ace is drawn, so you get a winner every week, and then you have the ultimate winner who gets that cumulative or progressive jackpot. So, and in Ontario, you get your 50/50 licenses from your local municipality, but you have to go to the province to get a progressive license if you want to do a progressive draw.
Or if
And-
you want to sell online, you also have to go to the province.
That's right. That's right. And there are organizations out there that will set up all of your provincial level draws for you, and that for a cut that they will take 10, 12, 15%. They'll do a website for you. They'll, they just won't sell the tickets for you. You're responsible for selling the tickets. So, but they'll take all the digital headaches away. And these are pretty big organizations that make, that help with that.
In our case, I'm a website designer, so I did it all myself.
Yay, good to know.
I don't know if we want to spend a lot of time with this, but I'm intrigued because I've never heard of it.
Okay, well, we
You
can
worry
follow up.
about, you worry about security? I mean, how do, security for this, for these cards? I mean, how do I know there's really an ace there? How do we know that somebody's not walking around with it in their pocket?
Well, when we did
Um,
it, we didn't actually have the event, so people didn't actually come every week. We just did it because I believe we did it during COVID. We videotape it, so we showed at the very beginning all the deck of cards, right? And we had them locked up. We showed us locking the board up in a closet at the hall that we were recording it from. So we had to demonstrate at the very beginning that there was an ace in the deck, and then we locked it up every night and had it secured.
Mhm. Yeah, we had a progressive chase the ace draw, and the ace is shown to everybody who's assembled, goes back in the deck is shuffled, and then the person that gets the winning ticket goes up and does the draw, and then they show their card, and that gets reported, that used to get reported in our weekly bulletin.
Thanks.
Okay, so key points as part of a plan or a strategy. So as I started you have a clear idea of why you're raising the funds, and make sure that your team is bought in. So make sure that you through talk and commitment that people are invested in this and are prepared to see through to the end. Make sure that you've got the clear, realistic goals, and that give yourself that extra runway that you build in, so in case you need a bit more time. Make sure that you know your audience, and that spend some time on developing a persona or a profile of your ideal customer. Take your time in crafting your message. Make sure it's compelling and that you're going to build a strong case for support. Test it, refine it, use storytelling. I know that with Rotary, especially for the foundation, the storytelling is a really important part. It's kind of like your Rotary moment. So being able to say, this is why I give, etc. So, but the storytelling is really important to make that connection and boost engagement. I sit on the Alzheimer's Foundation board in Niagara. And every year we have somebody who has a lived experience with caring for somebody with dementia, and that aids in making our work more impactful. So whether it's imagery or stories or what have you, that really is important to help let people know, especially during an event, why they're there. They're not just playing bingo and having fun, but there's some really, their money is going towards solving a community problem. And then build around your fundraising plan the use of social media. So you've got in other networks, you've got business-to-business networks, you've got other organizations that you can lean on. Bring those folks into your fundraising circle. Use your media contacts in getting the word out, and then develop your donor list, or you know, the people that you need to get out there for sponsorship so that you can do the asks. Excuse me. And then
Kind
with your, go ahead.
Sorry, kind of on that point too, we did a thing a couple of years ago. It was really successful with our RibFest. So on the point of crafting your message, we specifically promote our RibFest and put signage around our RibFest, basically saying, like, when you spend $20 at RibFest, you are feeding 10 children. And because we donate to Niagara Nutrition Partners, right, that's part of where our fundraising goes. So we specifically like say, hey, when you spend this amount, you're feeding, to show the actual specifics of where the fundraising goes. And we found it was super effective. So every year we like to add in something unique, right? Especially to the Niagara region. So we found it was really appealing to people because they see, hey, when I spend $20 on pop and whatever at RibFest, you know, this is where those funds are going directly to children to feed them for breakfast. So
That's a great point. Janet?
Can I just make a comment there? Can you hear me all right? I took off it wasn't working very well. Anyway, I find I'm treasurer of our club, and I found we had an event where we said we are spending this money at schools to use for literacy. Well, then morally and ethically and legally, we have a requirement to use that money at schools to spend for literacy, which was too specific. So I think I absolutely agree. We have to make sure everybody's bought in. We have to make sure that, you know, we can sell the tale of why they should be giving us money, but we have to be careful that we're not limiting ourselves as to what we can spend it on, because we're telling people this is what we're spending it on. So I think we've got to make sure we do, you know, such as kind of thing, rather than this is all it's for.
Right. That's fair. You know, I guess you're guided by the 4-way test, right? So
Absolutely. Yeah, and then hit when the schools wouldn't let us in. So I said, now what, right? Like, so.
yeah, with that too, every year we do the full list of what we donated to the previous year, right? So we do have all the lists of every project that we've done. As public image, I always have a what we support list, and it goes around to the different presses, and we do it. We find it just effective just to have, you know, a great big list of all the stuff that we did the previous year with the funds. So
Yeah, and that absolutely makes sense. But I said, I think, you know, some club being maybe too specific, and it's hurting them in the long run.
yeah, I guess that means that you need to ensure that in your literature that you guide people to the details and be able to state clearly about where their money goes. I mean, it's I think it's great to say that you know, your $20 feeds 10 kids, etc. But that, you know, there's further information that can break it down, because, you know, you want to be able to be authentic with the work that you do. So that's part of setting the metrics for success when you're tracking the progress and then measuring your ROI. So a few more success points. So for the major fundraisers, it's not just a one-off. You've got to be able to treat, I guess it's addressing the potential for failure and then learning from that. You know, you want to be able to say, look, let's set the bar, but you're in it for the long game. You know, you build it up year over year. First year, you're learning, so you almost have to assign somebody to kind of record things as you go, because you've got a living document in your business plan, and that you're reviewing your work periodically. But it's important to have those break-even points. Ensure that you've got enough sponsors for your event. You can sponsor teams, etc., and make sure that the sponsors have bought into the fact, especially if it's the first year, that you're committed to a multi-year success, and that that their investment in you is not just going to reflect on you, you know, giving it the try the first year, but that's going to be over a couple of years, especially if you're dealing with something like a golf tournament and you've got to deal with weather. That, you know, 1 out of 4 years, the weather is not going to be cooperative for you with the golf tournament. And that when I found that in the pandemic, the Alzheimer's Foundation, for example, runs a golf tournament in September. It's a significant golf tournament. And during the pandemic, you couldn't have a golf tournament, but the sponsors still wanted to give. And so it's a lot of effort doing the golf tournament. The money was still there because the need was still there. Of course, you know, it's always a good question to ask is like, are we making our event enough, you know, having enough fun? So you got to make it fun for the organizers, but also for the participants too. And the purse bingo, first time we did it, you know, come up with costumes, bring extra food for your table, all that kind of stuff. And some of the people that were groups that were coming to the purse bingo, I mean, it's a night out with girlfriends, and you know, it's not their first time that they've done a purse bingo, so they come and they know what to do. So it's kind of neat seeing tables that have been there for a while or for, you know, more than one occasion, and some people that are there for the first time. So it's a whole bunch of fun though. And then during your event, you can assign 1 or 2 people on your team to, you know, ask people's feedback as it's happening and note that. And then you want to be able to follow up with teams and people afterwards. And it might be useful if you are planning a multi-year event that you've kind of thought it out ahead of time, that you might have a date that's known the next year, because that it kind of invites people back to participating in a year again. And then year over year, you want to be able to build a list of contacts so that you're not just starting from scratch every year. That again, your first year is a learning year, but you are also curating a list of people that will reserve that spot on the calendar. They will make time for you and spend their money to come out and participate in your event. So you have to ask their permission whether it's okay to collect and keep their information, and that it's okay for you to kind of reach out to them with more information as you know, save the date kind of thing, or ask them if they want to participate in other events that your club may have. And then part of that is right there, and then you can start friending people on social media, getting people to like your Facebook pages and interact with you on Instagram and live tweet during the event, etc. So, you know, developing hashtags and whatnot. So take the time to earn that extra boost in popularity for your event. And then other people will be like, oh, I'm sorry, I missed it. And you can follow up with them and say, well, you can still donate. And then include some competitive aspects to your event too. So if your event, and a lot of times there's, you know, you have a dinner or whatever, but there might be a kind of an outbidding competition for an auction, or you can include some other forms of competition to make it interesting to help raise additional money. So other possible revenue generating efforts, you know, packaging and selling gift cards, especially if it's timely, you know, so if there's an event or activity that's happening in the community, or you need to raise money quickly, you can get generic cards and print something off and then sell those. Other printable merchandise, there's apps out there to do that. I work, I have a little part-time job at Bass Pro Shop, and one of the things that we do there is we ask people to round up for conservation. We raise a bit of money for local conservation programs, and so, you know, if somebody gets charged, you know, $18.45, we ask if they want to raise it up to $19 or $20, so that those increments at the till are added up at the end of the day, and there's an amount that's generated. So, and I thought that this could be something that we could take to other retailers in the community, that it might be something that we could look at, a multi-club fundraiser where we kind of work with local retailers over time, and generate some extra revenue that way. So it's also a big thing to look at workplace giving, but that depends on how your club has arranged its business connections. And there are other workplace giving campaigns that are going on too, so there's a bit of competition, but that's always a possibility. These various drives that are surprisingly successful, especially for electronics. But that's part of the multi-year process where you show up on a certain day every year to collect electronics, but you might also do some teaser events. The people like, oh yeah, well, I guess I'll get that to the back door or the front door, so that when you come a knocking again, it's not like, well, I don't have anything for you today, but there's a pile of stuff that they could give you if they just taken a few moments to get it ready, so that so you make it as easy as possible to collect. I often thought that it could be a possible fundraiser to do a guest speaker series or some kind of a debate. One of the events that we did kind of pre-internet in Welland that was really cool was we did this travelogue series. And so every month we filled the auditorium at Centennial High School. And the Centennial High School auditorium is the largest high school auditorium in Niagara. So there's 600 seats. And it was filled with a couple of speakers talking about their travel, their trips that they took. So they took slides and just talking about their adventures, etc. And so it was really popular. And now with media and whatnot, I mean, it's, and blogs, etc. It's, it's still kind of interactive to, get, into a live space to do something. So I've always wondered what might work if we were to kind of reclaim that kind of fundraising event. So it was very, very popular, so imagine 600 times $10 times 10 times a year. So that would raise quite a bit of money. But again, that builds up over time. I did a bit of a search about what some next ideas are that we could, just a little bit of a stretch goal for us here in the district and that clubs could do. There's a crowdfunding app that we have. It's called Raise for Rotary, raise.rotary.org. And you can post this on your website. You could raise it for a cause. And I know that for something like Frank Adamson's cycling around the Great Lakes, I believe he used that to raise some money with the cycling initiative. So how do we use this tool for our crowdfunding? And I've asked the district PI committee to develop a page for our crisis management plan, that if we deem the crisis requires some fundraising, we can put up a page on the district website, because people want, in a crisis, they might want to give. So we can direct people to a page in an emergency to say, hey, this is something that we'll collect the money on, and we'll need a bit more, curate some content, etc., especially, but resources can be raised for a crisis that we're involved in. Movember has been a really great brand and success, but can we pick a similar cause or initiative and find a month in the calendar where we all do a 30-day challenge as Rotarians across the district? I know that one of the things we do for the foundation is, and some clubs do this, you paint your pinky purple, and so you're walking around with a purple pinky, and people are, why is your what happened to your pinky? And say, well, this is what people get when they get vaccinated against polio. And so that's all part of raising money for polio. And so that visual cue introduces you to a conversation, which then you could then say, and if you want to give, you can, this is how. So again, can we do a 30-day challenge somewhere along the ways in the district? I know that we've done these in the past, but then we could frame it out differently, like Movember. As was noted, we've got the online auction done around, you know, a handful of clubs in the Niagara area. But how might we scale something like that up? Because when you're online, it can be anywhere. So we can work on that becoming a scaled event. It's great because a lot of this advertising, sponsorships, donations, that's all local to the Niagara area. But that, what if we actually looked at kind of another level and maybe another time during the year to do that? It's a monumental task, and one with, though, that a lot of people really enjoy participating in. We could burrow in on focusing on corporate sponsorships. We could come up with a list of, you know, top 50 companies or whatever that are local that we want to be able to go and target. And we can go visit with them with a package and talk about the work that Rotary does locally and our collective impact. We can have the local club where that head office or main office is, be the point club in doing that, but that knowing that there's a collective effort in developing that package that's customized for that club to develop that local sponsorship. And then we have the Healthy Communities Initiative, and so without this focus on wellness, etc., and the Trails Initiative that's happening in the U.S. amongst that many clubs are supporting. How might we develop more of an international connection across the Niagara River with the trails and interesting sites? It kind of gets back to that open house, doors open concept. So we could collect the passports and make it digital. So you've got something, you essentially can fill your local passport with touring around on events, and it gets you out walking or biking or whatever. So that would be a neat thing to explore. Again, it could be led by a club. It could be a multi-club initiative. And then I'd like to find out a little bit more about how we might do some fundraising using some of the integrated and some of the platforms around Instagram, TikTok, or Snapchat, etc. Again, that reaches a whole younger demographic, which we need to find and involve in our work with Rotary. And then benefit concerts, and then how do we match up with the arts in participating in some fundraising efforts. So let's talk about some fundraisers or friendraisers. So these are, you know, membership-driven events. There's some community awareness. There's some modest sponsors, and you can string up across some of these examples kind of a fundraising package for sponsors. And, you know, at a certain level, they get a certain amount of tickets to attend the events. But it's really mainly for the Rotarians, friends, and invite other clubs too. I think we could do more in the district of inviting neighboring clubs to our friend-raising events and activities. And that exchange of information, I think, would go to spawning other events and activities. It also is an opportunity to thank community members, present awards, having a keynote speaker, etc. And something like this, after maybe a couple of cycles, you might be able to scale it up. So, and we run our bocce tournament, but maybe we turn it into that, weekend long lawn bowling tournament and raise a lot more money like that club in California does. Some of the challenges that are part of the fundraising experience is you may not have appropriate facilities to do the kind of event that you want. One of the questions I wanted to ask you folks, do you want your Paul Harris event to be a fundraiser or a fundraiser, that kind of thing? I know some people that they sell tickets and have it part of a regular meeting, but I don't know. In my opinion, a Paul Harris event shouldn't really be a fundraiser, but certainly it can be a friend raiser. What do you folks think?
We've always just had a dinner, and we do it with the other Niagara Falls Club. And it's just basically as long as we get the money that it cost us back. There's no actual extra funds. If we do have a little bit of extra funds, it does go to our donations or like into our fundraising for the year, but usually it's break even or just barely break even.
Okay.
It's more of a night out, a social night, right? To honor the people that are receiving the Paul Harris Awards. So.
Right.
And I'm not informed because I'm the newbie.
Well, that's great. You can ask all kinds of great questions. Well,
And are you asking what a Paul Harris Award night is?
Well, I know what a Paul Harris Award is, but I'm not sure what our club does. I mean, I think it just all happens with guys write checks and then they decide later we're going to give out Paul Harris to Miss or Mr. X. I don't think it's a particular fundraiser related to Paul Harris.
Okay, so our club actually, we give Paul Harris Awards to community members. So on behalf of them, we submit to I believe it's $1,000 US to receive a Paul Harris Award. So we do it on behalf of community members. So our club picks 3 community members and the other Niagara Falls picks 3 community members in Niagara Falls. And we have a dinner to appreciate them and all their hard work throughout the years. So it's not, again, for us, it's not a fundraiser. It's more of a appreciation night.
yeah, we do. We're planning a wine and cheese social next Wednesday night here in Welland. So it's just a city facility. We get it reasonably priced, and we have a just nice wine and cheese. Takes an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to do, and it's really great. It builds that fellowship, camaraderie, teamwork, gives a sense of purpose to what we do, and recognizing the selflessness of others and volunteering, etc. So,
yeah.
And again, you're running an event, especially if it's got alcohol, you need a license, etc. So there's some costs that need to be covered. And then I mentioned the bocce and curling events that we run, but these are really fun, somewhat catered potentially events, and I think it makes it really worthwhile to as part of your Rotary experience.
But some of them are dual purpose too, Dave, because you're also trying to get new members. The reason Tanya does this.
Yeah.
Well, yes, recognizing the community, which we do as well, but also it's to get the community more aware of who we are and what we do.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing we did this year, which was a fundraiser, but not really, is we did a food drive at No Frills, the 2 different No Frills. So it was a membership getting together, everybody participating, and we gave people a little list before they went in and said, if you can buy any of this, food for kids, this is their list of the 5 things they really need, which included like cans of tuna, right? And then we delivered it to Food for Kids, and some people also donated money and gave us cash. So it wasn't a fundraiser for our Rotary Club, but it was a fundraiser for Food for Kids via our Rotary Club. And the other thing that happened is a number of people stopped to talk to us about what is Rotary and how can I learn more about it. So overall, just a really good, as you say, friend raiser event.
So you provided the person power for another organization.
100%. And it was 100% us doing it. Like we had all the Rotary signs. Yeah, Food for Kids didn't have anybody, but we're really involved with Food for Kids. We give them a lot over the years. So.
And there's that purposeful connection that people are like, okay, so I'm not just giving it to, I know it's going to go towards, some of the most vulnerable people in the community.
Yeah.
Thank you. So here's some more examples, quick examples of kind of the themes around fundraisers. So guessing games, silent auction, karaoke, polar bear plunge, seasonal event activity, cupcake competition decoration. I'm pretty sure it's the Rotary Club of Grimsby that does the Christmas tree decoration and competition. And so there's, again, seasonal contests regarding that. I'm sure you can pull in Halloween and Valentine's Day and all these other occasions. Doing a car wash. I saw somebody say, oh, you can do a dog wash. Developing a donor wall. One of the things that the Rotary Club of Welland we've done is we've gave the city of Welland a whole bunch of money to develop the Rotary Club of Welland Park, and there's a bunch of activities in there. We want to do an area of reflection, and part of designing the area of reflection is to memorialize some things and see what we can do there. So we've got benches and other things that we want to help sponsor and raise money for. Doing gift wrapping, etc., and doing a game, doing some kind of a game night, as I mentioned. There's some really cool new kinds of games, and so you can get some experts in doing that, get families together, and I think board games really bring people together, and it's often very fun. So let's move to some of the the license, some technicalities here. So Ontario and New York have different have their rules set out for games of chance. So chase the ace, 50-50, bingo, elimination draws, break open tickets, etc. So I know some people, some service clubs, they actually go and help run a bingo. In Niagara, the Kiwanis Club is heavily involved in bingo. They earn a lot of money from doing that. But again, it's a weekly commitment of going out to the bingo hall and you get your slot, etc., and you raise your money for your organization doing that. Depending on the auction, it may need a permit. It might need a lot more support too. And then I've included a couple of links here. So the Alcohol and Gaming Commission is that's where you go for Chase the Ace information, and there's gaming for New York State. And then there's plenty of different aspects to those websites, but there's also the kind of the municipal portal to each, because quite often you've got to go through your local clerk's office to develop games. And I began a conversation with a couple of the clerks in Niagara, saying, well, so what's trending? What's up? How do you see things are changing, especially as we're coming back out of the pandemic? So some interesting insights there in terms of how certain clubs are not doing certain games of chance anymore. So that might open up an opportunity for organizations like Rotary to step in and say, okay, well, we'll pick that up, and partnering up with those organizations that may be struggling coming out of the pandemic. And then the other kind of licensing. So it would be kind of fun to do some beer and wine tastings. organize a tour of wineries or distilleries, etc. Of course, you've got to make sure people get home safely. And Dan, I don't know what it's like over in New York State, but servers here need to go through a small training program called Smart Serve in order for, let's say, Rotarians to be slinging beer or whatever at an event. You need to have that qualification.
And just a note on that too, effective July 1st this year, anybody who has a Smart Serve that hasn't received it within the last 5 years has to renew it. So before they never expired, and now they are officially expiring every 5 years. So anybody that, I believe the date is 2018. So if you've gotten it prior to 2018, you actually have to go in and renew your Smart Serve.
Yeah, I think I got my Smart Serve in 2018. I renewed it and did training again in 2018. So yeah, time to get back in.
Even in 2018, I believe yours will expire next year then, or July 1st along with it. So it has to be prior to 2018, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
So we're luckily for us here in Niagara Falls, we just make that cutoff because our RibFest is in June. So luckily our volunteers don't have to renew before July 1st, but we'll be encouraging all of our Rotarians and all our volunteers to renew theirs so that they can help us in 2024 with RibFest. So.
Okay. Dan, any awareness of requiring a Rotarian or member to?
Well, I know state liquor in New York has got more restrictions on liquor than you can imagine. There's some recent legislation that supposedly loosened it up, but I'm not that terribly familiar, even though half of my daughter's law practice is liquor. So I guess I'll ask her.
Okay, be good to know. One of the things we don't do a whole lot of, and it's been an occasional thing, where it is doing grant writing. We are an organization that does not have a tradition of developing revenue streams through grant writing. And to me, I think that that needs to change. We need to explore this part of ourselves. We should consider this an in-development area. We would need to put a small team together to say, all right, here's what are the cases where Rotary clubs have actually written a grant and delivered a service. You know, can this be on an ongoing basis? I mean, certainly we have the administrative and executive expertise to do this. And so is there value in writing grants and finding this this compelling? I mean, I know we write proposals and things like that through the foundation and other aspects. This would just translate to some things local.
Especially in events and here in Ontario, there have been a lot of funds, especially post-pandemic, a lot of funds coming from our Canadian and provincial government for events and stuff. So yeah, Rotary definitely has to get on board with grant writing and going in for some of those funds. I remember a few years prior, now this is probably at least 10 years back, I believe that the Canadian government too, when we wrote our district grants and applied for our district grants, there was a fund matching program.
Yes.
I don't know who took that on. And I don't know.
Oh, you just dropped out.
Oh, yeah, I don't know if that's still applicable. I don't know if they're still, the Canadian government is still matching funds for certain.
Yes, it is through the foundation, and that's part of that bonus of scaling up our impact in what we do. But that's good that you mentioned that, because there are other corporate matches and other areas to leverage in terms of grant writing, so that I know in Niagara and Hamilton we've got community foundations and a handful of foundations, but in upstate New York there's considerably more foundations. And then I think if we kind of coordinated a little and looked at what some of these organizations invest in, we can begin a conversation with some of the funders and just start to say, well, we already do this, or maybe we could explore this particular area in terms of a project. And it shouldn't be the be all and end all for revenue, because I think impact and making a difference is the ultimate goal, but that partnering up with some funding organizations to accomplish mutually agreeable goals, I think would be a worthy exercise.
I think it's also there's a line between there's kind of a blend between the sponsorship, and because a lot of corporations too will have, not only will they have to promote their business, they will want sponsorship opportunities, but some of them have now merged in having foundations, right?
Yeah.
Like, McDonald's has both McDonald's the business and Ronald McDonald Home as a foundation. So, and a lot of those corporations, I know a lot of the banks, so insurance companies and stuff here in Ontario, they're now in the foundation side. So it's more of again, you have to write a grant or a proposal to receive the funds rather than a sponsorship opportunity.
Okay, so I over the course of the next year or so, I want to be able to explore this, and especially where Rotary can bring its assets, what makes our organization unique. I mean, we've got boots on the ground in many places in our communities, and we can provide that local network to in partnership with organizations that are seeking to kind of get the word out. And I think there's some value in that, sitting down and figuring out how we might develop some relationships there. There are some guides. Some public libraries have access to grant databases. There's books, magazines, etc., gateway websites, specialists who actually work in development and fundraising. We can tap into their knowledge and expertise and resources, have them as speakers at our club, for example, and begin deepening our conversation. And then, of course, curating a list of who's in our neighborhood and who would be interested in helping out. Some of the I want to focus a little bit as we work towards the conclusion of our time today, is looking at some of the main skills that are required for fundraising success. So taking a longer approach to ticket sales, because typically it's like, how many people in your club are good at selling tickets, and there's a cohort in your club that could sell tickets with a little bit of a nudge or some training. And so buddying people up, doing a training session on ticket sales, or further organizing this, because some people will raise most of the funds and make sales because maybe that's what they do. They're really skilled at it. They've got a network, etc. But this is also a process where you can build up and reward these skills by setting goals, having a coach, etc., and just making it really easy for people to ask for help. And then the clubs have organizational skills for business planning. So take that kind of concept idea, kick it around for a little bit, and turning it into an idea, and then things take root from there. We've got skills in our clubs with regards to logistics and arranging those tasks and being able to know what the rules are and how to account for the money, etc. You've got people who are really good at organizing the day of kind of events. They're the the central coordinator. They could run the tournament, etc., and be that convener. And they might require a couple of people to help them out, but they're best suited to run that day. But what you also need to have is a backup for some of these people, and that, because if you lose a member or that person is unable to be there on the day, oh well, Dave's always done the bocce tournament. Well, there'll be a bocce event when it'll be handed off to somebody else and they'll have to run the tournament. So there has to be a file with backup, etc. So it should be up to the executive to say, all right, well, what do you have in case you've got an emergency? It's like we need to be able to have access to that file so that we can pick up the pieces, especially if you're within days of an event. That main key person has to turn their attention to some other issue that people can step in. So there has to be a sense of backup. I didn't include that in the points here, but I think it's really valid. And then your club culture, how suitable is it for your club to add one more fundraiser idea? So it might be that, well, we drop one and add one, that kind of thing. So what kind of club culture you have to support your a successful fundraising? So do you have that budget line ready to go? Do you have all the process for tax receipts, et cetera, and that follow through? Be able to manage the paperwork, looking at forming a committee. You know, I've often been a fan that you get your 5 newest members, you give them $1,000 and you say, go raise a couple of grand, you know, invent something and make it fun. And that when a new member comes on board, the 5th oldest member gets kicked off, that kind of thing. So so that I think would be, you know, if typically if you can get somebody who's joined a Rotary Club and they're coming to the 24th month of participating, you know, that's kind of a make or break time that says, am I going to keep on going with Rotary or am I going to look for something else? And if you can get people invested in the club early on, the roots will be deeper. And so using something like this, where here's $1,000, and you're going to just the 4 or 5 years going to take that away, and you're going to create something, and you know, come back and surprise us with what you're going to do with that. And then of course there's context, because you're going to embed the your fundraising activities in your strategic planning process. Anything anybody wants to add? Okay, moving on. And then some precursor skills that you can help create, and then leading on into some homework. So be creative. So throw out a wild idea. So maybe you at your executive meeting, just have 4 or 5 minutes for some fun, just to throw out a wild idea for fundraising or an event or whatever. And then just have people just say, look, let's just play with this for a little bit. No harm, no foul. We'll just color outside the lines. And how do we get people to pay for ads on the website? Or how do we do brick engraving to memorialize some of our members that have passed, or something like that? So being able to toss something out there to see, you know, that it gets minuted, and it's like something that you've planted that seed and you can come back to it. And then some clubs may not have that tech wizard that would help them with their website and social media, but that, you know, develop a hashtag for your event and make sure that that takes root, and then you can track your social media for impact as well. And then you can then work with your local sponsors and partners to say, here's what our impact is year over year, and how that's changed, and so you can show that kind of change and growth. And then look around your community and just engage people in just loose conversations about what's happening, what are some of the needs, how are the needs changing, because there's data out there that identifies how some of the needs in our communities are changing, and some of the needs will go unmet for a while. And there might be an agency or two who's on the front line, is like, we're the only people doing this, we need some help. Rotary shows up, and things begin to or things are impacted. And because you can start to invite them in as speakers in your weekly meetings and your events, to talk about if there's a kind of a skill gap or overlap that you can find to work on with your partners. and then deepening that with the, as I said, with homework. So sure, you're doing a strategic plan, but part of that should be surveying your partners and the folks in your community. I often wonder when you ask people that aren't really that connected with Rotary, it's like, what is your club known for? Like if you ask people at the grocery store, it's like, so have you heard of Rotary? And what do you think our club, what did the Rotary Club in our community does? Well, do people know? So, you want to be able to get the word out to on that. So maybe it's like, oh, you're known for a fundraiser, or you're known for raising the money because it goes towards a good cause, that kind of thing. So again, that's part of doing a survey in your community of key stakeholders and folks. Make sure you build a file and you look at an opportunity to look at, just for fun, take 5 or 10 minutes every month to look at some fundraising ideas of what other clubs are doing in other districts, and then reach out and make contact with them. So if somebody you see has a really good fundraiser, or there's a really good news article, follow up that and contact that person to say, you have a business plan that you could share, because this is how we're going to kind of turn things over and keep being innovative. And so if somebody can give you a bit of a lead on developing something, it's really great to have those examples that you can build on. When you have an event, you've got everybody's names and information, you can send out that survey and you get authentic feedback and testimonials. So it's kind of like the chat in our Zoom tool here that you can have a record of a narrative that's going on. So that's really good sound bites that you can include in your social media, on your web content, and your printed materials. And then at our purse bingo, it's like we want to be able to put up the hashtag and just say, hey, tweet about this and post to your Facebook and Instagram what you're doing here. And so that may not be impactful for you raising money that evening, but you get the FOMO effect, and people want to be a part of that next year, so you can track that. And then continually review your messages and impact, and then you want to be able to fine tune that and the resonance about how it's tuning with the community. And of course, don't just say that it's for Rotary. It's, as we've talked about, I think it's pretty clear to everybody here. You talk about who you're helping, and people will be a little more generous, I think. And so I've been developing, or just started developing, trying to learn about how to do this on our district site. There's a clickable through the presentation here. You can cut and paste it if you want. I asked for a mock page to be put up on the through the governance committee, so that it's going to serve as a resource for all clubs. I just wanted to get your sense of reaction to something like this on the district site, and over the days and weeks to come, get some feedback on this as a resource, because we don't have a fundraising, we have a foundation committee and fundraising, but we don't have a fundraising resource for clubs on the district site where people can post up their fundraisers and general dates, and then plans and tips and all that kind of stuff. So, and the proposal trying to get to emerge here is that we're going to meet every quarter the key champions for fundraising at each club, just to shoot the breeze, to talk about when their next events are, and so that we're not kind of booking over each other, that kind of thing. But you put training videos up and PDFs of documents and contacts and information. So it could get really hairy pretty fast in terms of jamming all kinds of content in there. I just wanted to get a sense of if this is a good direction to go in.
Just
Anybody?
a question, does our club doesn't have a fundraising chair?
Not all clubs do.
No.
So, and when you go into Club Runner, there isn't a fundraising designation there in general. You actually have to kind of type that in. And so that's part of the mechanics of, getting people to forums like this, is that I just can't click one or two buttons and say, I can send an email out to the fundraising contacts. It's kind of got to go through the president. So we need to be able to deem in Club Runner. So this is a mechanical thing with Club Runner, is to identify who the fundraising chair is, and so that we can convene a meeting more easily. So it's a bit of the mountain to climb, I think, with Club Runner. So I gotta go ask. So I want to get that done over the next by the end of the month. So good direction, thoughts, anything? Yeah, okay.
I think a toolbox, like I know Public Image has worked really hard. Dave's done a really good job. Dave Schultz has done a really good job of the toolbox feature, right? In
Yeah.
the Public Image, so that all Public Image people or any Rotary member can go to the district website and there's, tips and tricks of what everybody's using and different things on how to get to My Rotary and how to use, different functions, social media, whatnot. And yeah, so I think it's a good idea to have that kind of toolbox too for fundraising support.
Okay, great. So next steps. Dan, love to work with you on how to move from a check writing club to adding a couple of more dimensions. The idea would be to start simple with a easy proposal. One club can mentor another club to copy a fundraiser. I mean, that's that whole idea of it's at scale. But Brantford is, when we did the session in January, Brantford is totally willing to show other clubs how to do a trip of the month club fundraiser. I think that if that could be potentially for me could be an all Niagara club fundraiser, or clubs in upstate New York could say, all right, we're all in on this. There's a limited amount of tickets that are sold, and they clear quite a bit of money. It's a significant fundraiser for them. So we can just kind of, there's a model called Care and Share. So how we do, so there would be that list of fundraising examples where you would have the key documents. I'm just making notes as I talk here. And then a club contact, and then some training materials so that it can be kind of, franchised. And then we can also look out there, like who was copying us, who are we kind of competing, co-opetition or whatever with, because, Welland did purse bingo, but then it seems like there's like 8 other organizations doing purse bingos and whatnot. So it's like, hey, so we've got to be able to kind of preserve our date, and those people that we want them, but those people that participate in our purse bingo, we want them to come back and want to learn from them what we need to do better the next time, et cetera, et cetera. So, but there's my point again about designating the club contact in Club Runner. So I'm going to work on that, the quarterly meeting idea, and then using the district calendar to mark out any of your events. So that again is one of those habit forming kind of practices where people would almost block off that date or two to say, hey, we're having our Rib Fest on this date. So people are like, no, that's going to take up a lot of Rotary air, and we want to, but also that those clubs might need some volunteer help, so it's like, we're not going to have our competing event on that date, and because we're going to go help you, that kind of thing, or we're going to go attend your event. So just some of those simple practices. I have one last slide that's on just a couple of, it's a reference, but so it's not really needed, but this is kind of the end of what I have to contribute to this. And I hope you found today valuable. And I'd love to stay in touch. And anything anybody wants to contribute right now?
Dave,
Well,
do you have our email addresses to send us the slides?
I can find them through Club Runner.
I just put my email address in the chat with that request.
Okay.
Because I want to thank you, Dave. You've given me a lot of ideas, maybe too many, so I've got to filter them a bit. And because if I go back to the club and say, let's do this, they'll probably shoot me.
Do one
do it all.
small thing first, and then
Yeah.
but find somebody that you can kind of a partner in crime that you can. It's not just from you; it's about with somebody else. So